happy to introduce you to the Flute of the Month provider. This is June 2017. We just were taking a walk down through 9 Mile Canyon here in Utah. 9 Mile Canyon is a place of obvious habitat for people for many generations. In the canyon today, there's just a handful of ranches and a handful of oil wells or gas wells. But back in the day, this must have been a very favorite place to live. The canyon itself is relatively narrow, and so weather would by and large blow over the top of the canyon. There was food available, there was water in the canyon bottom, and then up on the outside of the canyon there was access to area that would have provided other access to other animals like buffalo and perhaps even elk and deer and all sorts of different creatures there. Down in the canyon itself, there was, I'm sure, deer and goats and all sorts of different animals that would provide for the people who lived here. All along the rock wall in 9 Mile Canyon, there is rock art panels, and there's many of them. There's I don't know how many different rock art sites there are, but it's a lot. There is a lot of rock art sites there in 9 Mile Canyon. When we first started, I thought the first panel we came to, I was just blown away. I thought, wow, this is awesome. And by the end of the day, it was like, oh my gosh, that first panel was almost nothing compared to what I've seen now. There was just so much there. Here in Utah, there really is an enormous quantity of rock art available in Utah. One of my friend's mothers used to be the president of the Rock Art Society, Norma Jean Allen, and she was a delight. Norma passed away this last February, and at one time I would go in and play the flute for her fairly regularly every few weeks, and one time I went in to play the flute, and I did this as part of my church service. It was part of my calling to my church, and so one time when I went in to play the flute for her, I says, Norma, would you like me to play the flute? She says, yes, but just none of that churchy stuff. And so that was great. She was wonderful. And I thought, well, all right, none of that churchy stuff. So I played a song that I was trying to play just the outdoors, birds calling, elks calling, different things like that. And with all sorts of weird combinations on the instrument, and she loved it. She just flipped out, was just crazy about it. So that's kind of what I was trying to do again on this last song, but I was also thinking about a group of people out hunting, trying to bring back food for their tribe, for their families, and so that's what that song was supposed to be about. So when I started making this flute provider, I originally was going to have a flute with a fish on top for Father's Day, because I love fly fishing, and thought it would be a great Father's Day flute. And one night I was having trouble figuring out what I was going to do for the flute body and for the trim and everything. It just wasn't coming together in my mind. And so one night I was praying about it a little bit, and the idea of hunter came to my mind. While I was praying, the idea of hunter came into my mind, and with it came these images of rock art, and or the idea of images of rock art. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to do a fish on this flute. We'll do something different. And so I got talking to my wife about it. I said, we ought to go for a trip up 9 Mile Canyon and take a bunch of pictures of the rock art that's up there, and perhaps we can use that for this flute. And so she and I and our friends Bart and Kelly Packer went on a day trip up 9 Mile Canyon, and if I could get there as the crow flies on a freeway, I would be there in less than 15 minutes. But in order to get there, I have to go clear down to Price and then clear up this other canyon before I get to any rock art, and it's at least an hour and a half drive, if not a 2-hour drive, just to get to the first panel of rock art. And then we drive on up and finish going out toward Duchesne, Utah. And it's a great trip. If you get a chance to come down here, it's not on on any of the tourist maps that I'm aware of, but it is really a fabulous drive to be able to stop and pull over. The first site as you drive up the canyon is marked, and then after that, the only other site that's marked is the Great Hunt. You have to just pull over where you see people have been pulling over and get out and search for the rock art. And it's awesome. It's just such a fun experience to do. So I really highly recommend that. Well, let me go ahead and tell you about the Flute provider and what and what it's all about. The flute itself is made from apricot. I chose apricot wood because apricot by itself provides substance. You can get the fruit, of course, from the apricot. You can eat the seeds of the apricot, and all of that provides substance for people. On the ends of the apricot, we have a Chechen wood. This is from down in Mexico. We've got a little bit of ebony, just some little fine line of ebony in between turquoise, and then we have some, the red in the inlay here is actually solid pipestone. And the pipestone is in there like this so that, because the pipestone is a special material. I actually haven't used pipestone on any other flute before. Well, that's not true. I used some for inlay once when a person specifically asked for it. But other than that, I've not used it because for the people back in the Dakotas, pipestone is literally the blood of their people. And so to me, I see that as a sacred element for them, and I want to respect that. I felt good about using it on this flute because of the intention of the flute, that this flute was symbolized the act of providing for family. And down here at the very bottom, or at the top, I suppose, you have this image of perhaps a man and a woman, or just two people, and it looks like they're reaching out to hold each other's hands. And when I saw that, I thought of me and my wife and holding hands at night, and just how much comfort that brings me. And in fact, the day doesn't feel complete unless I've had an opportunity to sit and hold my wife's hand. And so I really like that image. So then we have the buffalo here on the side of the flute. The buffalo has to be on the flute. Buffalo is such an important animal for the survival of the people that without buffalo, life becomes very, very difficult. If you think about everything that comes from a buffalo, the food, the clothing, the blankets for warmth, the housing, using the hides and sinews and all those things to create their lodging, the bones and for tools, and the teeth and different things for jewelry. All of this stuff is so important for the people that we have to have buffalo on there. In fact, in 9 Mile Canyon, we saw at least 4 different buffaloes on the wall, and I know there's one that's a really big buffalo that's there. We weren't able to go see that rock panel because frankly we were wore out. We had done a bunch of hiking around and just were too tired. It was the last panel, and we didn't get to see that one. But buffalo is so important for the people that I wanted to make sure we had that on the flute. There's a panel up in 9 Mile Canyon called The Great Hunt, and The Great Hunt is probably the most famous piece of rock art in Utah. I'm certain that you've seen images from The Great Hunt that have been used for inspiration with other artwork or reproductions of it. And The Great Hunt has a whole bunch of different goats look like they're in a big herd. In fact, on the top row of The Great Hunt, each one of the goats is connected to the next one. So this goat, it looks like its tongue is connected to this one, and they all look like they have a tongue or a rope or something that connects them all. And perhaps it's a rope because on the goat right here, you see this line that goes down and then connects to this person's foot. And so perhaps that's what it is, that it represents a line that connecting all of these. Maybe the domestication of the goat is what it represents. I'm not really sure, but that is what the panel looks like. And then the panel also has a bunch more rows of goats down below. It's quite a large piece of art. This image here, this hunter with the bow and arrow, is pointed at the rock art. Now, these images, I've kind of moved them around a little bit from the original art. It's not exactly in the same place and everything. I've moved things around a bit. But you can see in the pictures of the Great Hunt how we pulled these panels or pulled this artwork out of it and made it useful for what we're doing and trying to convey the images and ideas that I'm trying to convey with this. In fact, this hunter, we changed his anatomy a little bit from the image in the Great Hunt, just to make it more family friendly for our flute. Down here on the bottom of the flute, we have a circle within a circle around the tuning hole here. This circle within circle within circles, that image is again all over the place in 9 Mile Canyon. What I've seen more commonly is a spiral where you have a circle that spirals out and it's one continuous line. Here, however, they use a circle or a dot in the middle, then they'll come out, go back in and make a circle, come out, go back in and make another circle, kind of like a target. And that's seen in a bunch of different places. I know down on the Navajo reservation, one of the gals that I was talking to on the rim of Canyon de Chelly was telling me that the circle within a circle represents for them infinity. And I don't know if that's what this is representing or not, but I think that perhaps it's representing something like that. Then on the top of the flute, on the tuning hole, we have 4 direction symbol. And over on this side of the flute, again, we have circles within circles. And then we have this image here, which is one of the strangest images. Well, actually, there's some really bizarre images on some of the panels there in 9 Mile Canyon that I wasn't able to understand at this time yet what those images meant. This one, I think that I know what it is. It has this waveform underneath, and then you have this person standing there on top of the waveform. And the waveform, for a long time, I thought, well, it's a snake, or maybe it represents a river. But it's very precise in how it's made. Each one of the waves has a different shape than the one next to it. The wave that this person's standing on actually has a slope on it like this, and down in the valley there's a slope in the other direction. And while we were up in Rock Canyon, Kelly Packer said, what if that represents the skyline? And I had never even thought of that. So I turned around and I looked at the skyline in the canyon, and sure enough, it has a waveform. You know, you go down these valleys and it comes up into a hill, down in the valley, comes up into a hill, and so on, all across the valley. And so I thought, what if this actually is representing a map? And this person standing on top of the wave, he's got a stick with a couple of balls. What if it's representing games, a particular game? And that could be what these 3 triangles represent, maybe a goal that the game's gonna, that the balls are hit through or something. And so I thought this could potentially actually be a map saying that on the 4th hill over, the one that's got the little bit of a slope on it this direction, next to the valley that slopes the other direction, we're going to be hosting the games. And so I don't know if that's what it is, but I think it's possible. I think that that's possibly what it is. And for me, a lot of the joy of looking at the rock art is trying to figure out what is it that you're actually seeing. What is the person trying to convey? Or are they just making something that they think is cool? I don't really know. Or is it part of prayer? It's hard to understand for sure what exactly is being conveyed, but it's a lot of fun trying to figure it out. In fact, I'm going to show an image right now of some dots. These dots are in numerous places throughout the canyon, and you'll see maybe a line of dots, or one place there's a panel that has a bunch of different artwork on it, but it also has a whole bunch of dots up on the top, and they're all in a row and things. And I thought, what if those dots actually are a scorecard for this game? Because the panel that has all of those dots on it is right next to an area that opens out in the valley, and it kind of makes a natural amphitheater. And so I thought this could be a place where they come down to play their games down in here, and then they keep score. And I don't know, maybe not, who knows. But I do know that people are more complex than just simply eating and drinking and existing. We need things like games or music or what have you in our lives to add variety and depth to this existence that we're experiencing. The next image is on the top here is a four-direction image. And there's numerous places that we saw the four-direction image. And as I thought about it in relationship to going out after the goats, because there was so many of the images that we saw had goats on them and had hunters on them, hunting the goats, that I thought that these images perhaps are made by the people who are left behind waiting for the hunters to return. And maybe they're drawing out what they hope happens for the people. Perhaps they're doing it in prayer to demonstrate their commitment. They're putting it onto rock, that this is what they're projecting into the future, is this great hunt. I don't know if that's the case, but I think it's a possibility. And if that is a possibility, back in those days, hunting was not the same as it is today. Today, if I go take my son out hunting, we're going to be coming home that evening. The odds of us coming home are very, very high. Back in those days, if you went out hunting, not only were you not home that evening, but you might not be home for several weeks. And during that time, you were in serious risk. You weren't in the community. You were out and about. You may be hiking. Could get hurt on rocks, falling, or bitten by snakes, or attacked by whatever. And so it just was not the same kind of environment of safety that we have today. So the four directions to me represented a mother's love. She putting that four directions out there with the hope that her son or her husband is going to be able to find their way home. So that's kind of what I saw in that. Then another image that I saw in a couple of different places was people walking in a line holding something round. And this particular one is the best of those images. And after staring at it for a while, I thought, those are drums. That represents drums. These people are banging on drums. And I think I really got convinced of that when I noticed that this person right here in the lead has an arm that's dotted out. And the dotting of the arm, to me, that it seems really clear to signal movement, that this is showing that this arm is actually in this attitude of moving. So those are all of the images that are actually on the flute. And then we have the totem, which is the goat. The goat is carved from pipestone. This pipestone is, again, it's a material that I've carefully used. I've gone ahead and used it on this flute specifically because this flute is meant to represent more than just an instrument. It represents the understanding of the need for the hunt and the need for providing substance to our loved ones, to our family, and to our tribe, our group. And to me, that's a very important thing. And so I wanted to make sure that we did this in a way that was very, very respectful. On the back of our goat, we have an arrowhead out of turquoise. And the arrowhead is tied onto the back of the goat. That's done to represent a prayer. It's called a prayer package, and it represents this prayer of a good hunt and success in bringing back meat for the family. On this particular goat, you'll notice that it's got painted on it a couple of lines that come together in a V. I'm going to show you an image right now of a goat that's up on 9 Mile Canyon. This goat was pecked out of the wall, and I did not notice until I got home that it actually has the V pecked over the top of the other peckings to create this art. I think this is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece of artwork. It shows a depth of understanding to create more complex in a very hard medium. It's a hard medium to work with, and it just shows a great deal of forethought and depth, in my opinion. At any rate, again, this is the Flute of the Month for 2017. This is Provider, flute number 1 of 10. We've got F sharp is flute number 2, and it's already made. There's a person who has expressed an interest to me for that flute, so I don't know if it'll be available for you. If you want to contact me and let me know you're interested in it, I'll find out whether or not it's available for you. But these will be available all until they're gone, 1 through 10, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.